Are synthetic fertilizers necessary? Let's explore that in a little more detail today. Hi everyone, Dr. Arland Hill out at Harvest Hills Ranch, and today we're standing in our orchard. And in our orchard we have the rows of trees, but between our rows of trees we have alleys, and we do alley cropping in here. The last crop that just came out of this were potatoes. We had white potatoes, red potatoes, and that'll be relevant in just a moment. I'll share that with you. But when we don't have a crop in here that we're using for food production, we always like to make sure we have something growing. We want to keep nurturing the biology in the soil. We want to keep the activity of the microbes as high and as efficient as possible, so we plant cover crops. Now, when we planted the potatoes in here, before we planted in this exact area that you see here, we had planted Austrian winter peas, and that was all I planted in here. In hindsight, I should have planted a few other things in here, but nonetheless, we planted a thick cover of Austrian winter peas, and the reason that that is important is that became a good source of nitrogen, of organic nitrogen. Let's say you want your yard to grow and become more lush. One of the things that you'll be told to put on that is nitrogen. You go get a fertilizer and you add nitrogen to your grass and it'll green up and it'll become more lush and start producing. Well, instead of using that inorganic nitrogen, you can also, which is also soluble and gets used really quickly, you can use insoluble organic nitrogen, but that comes from living plants, specifically from the category of legumes. Oftentimes we think about beans as being legumes, but that's not always the case. In fact, in this cover crop mixture, which is what we're doing now, I've got something here called sun hemp, and sun hemp is a legume too. It pulls nitrogen out of the atmosphere, and ultimately when we terminate this crop, that nitrogen will go into the soil and it becomes the fertilizer. So now we're not looking at a chemical fertilizer input, we're utilizing a biological source of nitrogen to put into the soil. Now, does this actually make a difference? Well, yes, and there's 2 points of evidence that I have to share with you today. One that will just be from the actual yield that we got out of this area. We had 4 rows of potatoes in this area, and these are 100 foot, this is 100 foot long, and we were getting a little over a bushel of potatoes per row here. So it was a lot of yield, and in fact, actually, when we quit harvesting and came back, we were randomly finding potatoes that we had overlooked and missed. There were potatoes everywhere. You'll see here, you have a feel for what this looks like, how tall this is. This is sorghum Sudan grass. It's going to be a great carbon source, but you can see if I just stretch that leaf out and kind of the average on these, I mean, these are hip height, a little bit higher, about waist height actually on me, and that's the norm all the way down through here. Now, take those 2 points, the potato production and how much you see on this grass production right here, and let's walk over here and notice the difference. So as I walk to this side, notice right away that the grass is much shorter. And in this entire area that you see right here, there's nowhere in this area do I have any grass that is as tall as what I just showed you. Now, I did not plant any Austrian winter peas in here, which means that over the winter, I didn't have a growing nitrogen source in here. I wasn't maximizing the regenerative ability of those plants in the soil, and you can see the impact on that. The potatoes did not yield in this area anywhere to the extent of what we got in the other beds over here. They were yielding somewhere around about a half a bushel out of this area. So point being on this, do we need the fertilizer, specifically synthetic fertilizer? No, we don't. We just have to work within the context of nature and use our cover crops to make that happen. You can see in this, I've got the sun hemp growing in here. Is it as good as what I just showed you? No, it is not. But will over time it get this area jump started? Yes, it will. We will terminate this, we'll lay this cover crop down, and we'll come and plant another cover crop behind it, probably a mixture of winter peas and winter grasses, and that's what'll be in here over the winter, so that when we roll around next spring and into the summer, we've got productive soil to be able to work with, and we didn't have any inputs, anything synthetic that we put into this. Now, if you can see behind me over here, there's two other quick things that I'll point out. Over in the distance, 2 rows over, or two alleys over, you'll see that we've got cow peas that are growing back there. And what we're gonna do with the cow peas is the same idea. There's cow peas there and there's clover growing under that. Those are just going to get laid down, and that'll ultimately get incorporated into the soil and become another option for nitrogen. So we're using diversity of plants here. And then this area that you see that where the ground is bare at the moment, it won't be bare for long there, because within that, the same mixture that we have in this bed, as well as the initial bed that I showed you, that same mixture has already been planted in over there. Now, what I did use over there was an organic fertilizer, where we had a mixture of different rock dust, some bat guano in there, so we had organic sources of nitrogen, we had minerals in there, but these are all things that will easily get taken in and efficiently used without having any chemically derived sources of fertilizer, if you will. So wanted to show that to you. It was just, I was out here and it was too big of a contrast between where those peas were growing over the winter and how much yield we got, and now what I'm seeing as far as the return growth on the cover crop that's in there versus what you see immediately behind me here. So just know that as we're out here working and as we're growing food out at Harvest Hills Ranch, this is one of the ways, or another one of the ways, that we avoid chemical inputs, and that you can feel good about the chemical-free environment that we just stick to. That's our model around here, and we don't compromise on that. And this is the way that we are able to stick to that philosophy. So with that being said, guys, if you like the information, hit it with a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, hey, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you join us out here. And thanks for, again, watching. I am Dr. Arland Hill out at Harvest Hills Ranch, and I'll talk to you real soon.